Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
If you've been hurt in a road accident that wasn't your fault, you should really talk to G4 Claims first. Unlike road accident solicitors, we don't charge you for our services, which could see you better off. To keep 100% of your compensation, have a chat with Nicole and the team. You'll be glad you did. Search online for G4 Claims.
Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined by my second Welshman on the podcast, Mark Evans, Head of International for the Welsh Football Association. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. I'm very good, Derek. I'm live and proud at the moment in Wales and enjoying actually seeing some live football again. So, yeah, it's all good.
It's been strange times, hasn't it? I mean, I suppose for myself, I'm a big Motherwell fan, as many people that listen or watch this podcast will know. But, you know, for yourself, you're maybe used to not having football every week working for the Welsh FA, but looking at the flag behind you, I'm sure you've got your home team that you follow as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the national team stuff has been very surreal. I mean, the Euros, I mean, the Scots were a bit lucky. You know, you actually got to see your team. I mean, the Euros in 2016 for Wales was such the perfect summer. And then this one was the opposite. You know, we didn't have fans in the ground and you know, it was a really tough summer. So, I mean, we're looking forward now to getting some fans in when we play Estonia in September. So the international team has been, I think everybody's dying to see the international team again. But at the moment, my team, Merthyr, we started the season, played 2, drawn 1, lost 1. But Merthyr's an interesting one because Merthyr, as a lot of you listeners will know, are a Welsh club playing an English system with the lowest ranked of the 5 Welsh clubs that play in England. And last year, because we couldn't get fans in, because of the Welsh government's cautious approach, as opposed to Johnson's bonkers approach, we couldn't get fans in. So we actually took the conscious decision last year to suspend our season. So we've had to rebuild the club from scratch. So it's going to be a bit of a long season for Merthyr this year, but I don't care because I'm watching it live.
Aye, exactly. What's that like for a Welsh fan going to watch football in England? I can imagine at times the atmosphere must be quite hostile, but you've constantly got that I want to get one over them.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Merthyr have been in these leagues now for over 113 years now. Because that's how we started. We were in the Football League once for a decade.
Absolutely.
And most teams we go to, we always go to with a bit of banter and it's good fun. Don't get me wrong, every now and again you get some numpty turning up who wants to give it the old England thing. But don't really get it, really, in non-league football. You know, I mean, I think one thing on non-league football has always been is if you want to cause trouble in non-league football, you better be paid to cause trouble because there's no police around. There's no dancing about on pavements and throwing chairs around. Non-league football is different.
Aye, that's
so, we don't get much grief, but I mean, it is good fun, you know, and I think we enjoy being very Welsh when we go away. You know,
cranking up that accent.
Oh, we crank it up way, way high. Yeah.
Tell us a wee bit about your job then, because we've obviously got a mutual friend, Jaffa, who's a big Welsh fan, and I believe that you go way back into the fanzine scene and have been to gigs together and the likes. But he told me, you know, I've got a friend, Mark, who's head of international at the Welsh FA, and I thought, what the hell is head of international? But the more that I hear about it, it sounds like the dream job for someone that's a Welsh football fan. Oh,
I mean, yeah, it is the dream job. I mean, my dad worked in Hoover's. Right, okay. I mean, the massive plant was in our town, and there was one in Cambuslang.
That's right,
in Scotland as well. Yeah, so my dad worked there for 30 years. So every time I come home sometimes and I have a little moan to my dad about my job is a bit tiring, I've been away, he just slaps me across the head and tells me to shut up because that was a tough job. This is a dream job. No, I mean, you mentioned the fanzines there, and the interesting thing about my career path, which is a total accident, is all based on the fanzine. So in '89, when the fanzine explosion started, every team had fanzines. I mean, Motherwell must have about 18 in one season in those days because everybody produced one. I started the Merthyr fanzine, Dial M for Merthyr, which is still going today, by the way.
Brilliant. Still yourself that produces it?
Not so much now. I write a lot of stuff. Yeah. It's my mate Mikey does all the editing now.
Brilliant.
for legal reasons and things like that. So the fanzine started, and we were very eager on talking about football politics and everything. And in Wales, of course, it's nowhere near where the Celtic Rangers thing is, but we do have in the south of Wales the Swansea Cardiff thing. Yeah. So when the Football Supporters Association, where Rogan Taylor from Liverpool were campaigning against ID cards and everything, all the South Wales meetings would be held in Merthyr because it was neutral territory.
Right. Okay.
And I did the fanzine, and we invited the then General Secretary of the Welsh FA, Alan Evans, to come to a meeting. I gave him a fanzine, asked him for an interview. He said, "I no problem, come on tomorrow." I went on the next day in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and a bit of pencil in my hand and a bit of paper, and he wanted to interview me for a job. So I started off on a really bad start, and then I got the job. And then within 12 months, the Welsh FA changed dramatically. The campaign for the League of Wales and stuff happened, and I was very lucky to stick my foot in the door and get a chance to do it. So I've been doing that for 31 years now.
Mark, did you at first it was you were crossing over to the dark side? You're going from fan to corporate, or were you all right with that transition?
I was all right with that. Right. I was all right with that. I'm happy to do that. I'm sorry. I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, I watched Merthyr, and because in '89 Merthyr were in the conference. So and in '92 we finished fourth, which now would be a playoff match.
Yeah.
So it's a bit scary to think Merthyr could actually go back in the Football League at that point. I don't think it would have ended well because we have a history of financial problems. But no, coming to watch Merthyr is a bit off. In a way has been quite helpful for me because the Welsh FA obviously deals with domestic Welsh football, and because my club doesn't play in it, it's almost like a step out. I can step out on the weekend, and watch the Martyrs and not get involved. So in a way, it's helped me. And again, I think I am lucky. It's international football, so I don't have much influence or anything within the domestic game anyway, and I do enjoy watching it. Sure. It's getting a lot better, the domestic game in Wales, and the New Saints almost got through. Recently, and the Connors Key, of course, knocked out Kilmarnock a couple of years ago, which I keep telling everybody about.
Aye, thanks for reminding us. It's Scottish football.
It's not bad enough.
You're putting us down.
So Welsh domestic football is really good, but obviously I do international. So I mean, from 1989, it was the men's first team and a youth team. Now, of course, it's the full gamut of teams. Now it's women's. Our women's team is really good. Women's in the 19s, women's in the 17s, the men's team, futsal. The only thing we haven't got at the moment, we haven't got beach football, which is a shame, man, because we've got lovely beaches in Wales, so we should do that one day. But yeah, and the international department thing is a bit of a misnomer because it sounds very glamorous. And don't get me wrong, I do have a couple of nice hotel rooms now and again, but it's all about operations. That's what it is. It's logistics. It's hotels, it's travel. I mean, at the moment, I'm doing visas for we're playing Belarus in September at a neutral venue, Russia.
Okay.
So it's all about the stuff in the background.
It's hard enough to fix a Russian visa for one person. Never mind 30 plus, I'd imagine.
Oh, I will fly. We'll have 60 people going there. So and it's a challenge, but But I mean, international football has changed so much. Everything is centralised now. The television contracts, the way we put the games on. I mean, what I do in Cardiff will be exactly what my counterpart in Glasgow will do. In fact, my counterpart in Glasgow, name check here, a fellow called Frank Riley was my counterpart in the Scottish FA. Sure. Top man and a top Queen's Park fan, and he's just retired. Brilliant. Full respect to Frank Riley.
It's good to hear that there are still Queen's Park fans out there, I have to say. If there's not many of them now.
It's 1 year, mate.
Aye. Would you say that's your Scottish team?
Yeah, it is our Scottish team. I mean, if Jaffa will tell you, that's where we all came together. Back in 1990, we wrote to the Queen's Park fanzine and said, we fancy coming up for a game of football. Do you want one? And then for about 15 years solid, we went up every Easter to watch the Queen's Park. And we still do it now.
Excellent.
It's sort of weird now, man, because I used to like going to Hampden because it was just a weird atmosphere.
Yeah,
it's less at Hampden now. As soon as they get their sort their act out, they're in Partick now, aren't they?
Yeah, strange, very strange.
No, I think my mates up there are getting a bit frustrated. But yeah. I mean, that's one of the weird things I said about Jaffa. The the Motherwell lads got involved with the fanzines, and they got involved with the fanzine five-a-sides. And in fact, our supporters team had a Motherwell fan in that as well.
Right.
A fellow called Alan Keachy,
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Motherwell fan, and he's one of the best football players who ever played in our football team. He was just the Maradona of the team, or the Jinky Johnston, or whatever you want to call it. So we've had good links with Scottish clubs, and it's St Johnstone, Motherwell, and Queen's Park. Those are the three clubs.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and again, it's all through the fanzines.
Yeah,
sort of men of my age now. We have these weird links. In England, it's Orient and Peterborough.
Yeah,
random. Because the links we've got through fanzines.
You still get together.
Sorry?
You still get together for your five-a-sides every year.
It's more walking football now, mate. Yeah, well, I find that the pandemic got in the way, but next year now we'll be going up to Queen's Park for the Queen's Park Sixes, and all jokes aside, yeah, we will have a walking football team against Motherwell and Peterborough.
Walking to the pub, more like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it won't last long. The football, it's just an excuse.
It's incredible to think, that the fanzine scene that really kicked off, I would imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the late 80s, early 90s, has created so many jobs for people like yourself. You hear of, even at Motherwell, Tam Cowan, who started off kind of in the fanzine scene, then get into working with the Evening Times, and now he's on Radio Scotland week in, week out. It really seems to have opened doors for people. It was like that early stage of like football journalism, which wasn't, it was almost like the first ever fans view, wasn't it? That offers an alternative view from your typical newspaper stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it just gives people the confidence to write and to just put their views on paper, however daft or crazy or in depth they were. I mean, we've got a couple of one big one with us, a gentleman called Johnny Owen. If you've watched some sports documentaries, I Believe in Miracles, the Nottingham Forest film, Don't Take Me Home, the Wales film, or more recently, Three Kings, about Trankley, about Paisley and Steen.
Yeah, I've not seen
that.
That's
a mate of ours called Johnny Owen.
That's phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I've not watched it yet.
It's a really good film. And I mean, all three of them, he specialised in sports documentaries. His first, and he'll tell you this, his first time he dipped his toe into journalism was writing for our fanzine.
It's amazing.
And then he did more, and then he obviously got the... But I think I think Adrian Childs wrote for the West Brom fanzine.
That's right. That's correct.
I think Adrian Goldberg was on TalkSport. Again, I think he's another West Brom fanzine lad. So I think it just gave people... there's a great lad called Tom Davis who writes for The Guardian, who wrote for the Orient fanzine. So you're right. I mean, I think it just gave working class people the opportunity to write for their peers, and then to go, I like this.
I've got a buzz.
It's a bit like yourself. It's a bit like yourself, doing the podcast,
Absolutely.
The link is football.
Yeah.
And this is great.
And it always amazes me how many doors football opens, and you'll have similar experiences to myself. You've made friends all over the world through football. You've been to cities and countries that you would never have visited in a million years through football. And it bothers me when there's people that maybe listen to this, or maybe you work with them. Maybe you won't work with them because you work in football, but you work with people and they go, okay, it's just a game. Why are you spending all your time going to the football? What a waste of money. And they don't realise that the personal relationships that people build off this, the emotional attachment to it as well,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think most football fans will tell you what they've missed in the last 12 months with lockdown. It's not the actual game itself.
Exactly.
Because to be honest with you, sometimes that's the worst part of the day. Everybody agrees with that. Right. I mean, watching Motherwell must be as frustrating as watching Merthyr.
Oh, it's torture.
Yeah, but you want to meet your mates, have a pint, get a pie, talk shit.
Absolutely.
Go home and moan about the game, because we love it when we lose. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
And I missed that. I missed seeing my friends.
Yeah.
Because that's the common bond that unites us, is this love of this silly football club in the middle of the valleys. And yeah, you're right. I mean, and of course, football is still one of the big things across the globe that everybody can talk about.
It's an
rugby is massive in Wales. You know that.
Yeah. International language. It's it's one thing that everyone can connect with, regardless of where you're from or what language you speak. Because sometimes you find yourself going places. Certainly, I hate this, and you'll get it as well with Cardiff or Swansea, I'm sure. But you go abroad and someone says, "Oh, you're Scottish, Rangers or Celtic."
Oh, yeah, we've covered that. We've covered that thing in our fanzine about 20 times. Which team do you support? Cardiff or Swansea? Neither. It's Merthyr. Oh, you must support one of them. No, I don't.
Jeez. Tell you in the west of Scotland, it's even worse when they start trying to work it out by
Yeah.
what school you went to or what your surname is. I have to say.
Yeah, well, we've actually got a new. We got a massive banner now, which we have at the ground, and it's a bit of a play on the old Socialist Workers' Party slogan. So it's neither Cardiff nor Swansea, but international Merthyrism.
That's brilliant.
Because genuinely, it's like, look, we're not interested in your petty squabbles and your stuff. We just like come watching the football, pint in my hand, watch the football. So yeah. But the thing is, though, whenever we go somewhere, whenever you go anywhere, meet somebody, they will 9 times out of 10 have some viewpoint on football.
Absolutely. So let's take it back to the early days with your job at the FA. What were you doing then that you're not doing now, and what were you doing in the first couple of days in the job? Was there any shocks? Was there a time where it really clicked and you thought, do you know what, this is the job that I've always dreamed of doing?
Yeah, I joined this more or less as the office boy, to be blunt, on about 60 quid a week, and it was just a bit of filing, answering the phones. I think one of the first things I did was, back in the day, it was before TV agreed the blackouts and everything about certain times. So the individual associations had the right to say, we don't want this game shown for a certain reason.
Okay.
And it was a Celtic game. Celtic were playing in Europe, and the Welsh FA decided that we wouldn't get enough money for this, so we would block it.
Right, okay.
Oh my God, the phones went nuts. People from Scotland ringing up, just having a go with me, which I enjoyed in the end because it was quite funny, because after a while you just have to go back.
Totally.
And, so it was a lot of that, answering the phones and stuff. But then about 9 months in, I think we restarted the under-21 team, and their first game, or one of their first games, was away in Poland. And my bosses then came downstairs and said, "Mark, have you got a passport? You go into Poland next week." And actually, I didn't have a passport. I had a massive black eye because I had a fight the week before, and so great. So my first passport is me with a massive black eye. So that was a great start. And then it literally went from there. So I went on this trip to Poland within the 21 team, and that team had Chris Coleman, Gary Speed, I think Ryan Giggs was in the team, and we won 3-2.
Amazing.
And I had a wonderful time. And then when I got back, the boss, as then more or less, said, "Look, you've done it once. Do you want to keep doing this?"
Yes.
Yes, please. And so I went from office boy to international secretary, or whatever we called it then, in the space of like 6 days.
Incredible.
But it was such a different environment, though. Such a different environment to now. Obviously, no mobile phones.
Yeah.
I was communicating with other countries by telex.
I don't even know what telex is, Mark.
Well, exactly, you youngsters. I was actually sitting there typing, and then a little thing would, and you'd wait for the reply, and it'd come up. "Hello, Albania. Do you want to play this in a friendly?" Pause. "No chance, Wales." "Oh, thanks. Okay." But that's what I was doing, And as I said, there's a few teams. We had no women's team then. It was a massively different time, But it was a much more enjoyable time in some ways.
Sure.
Because the players were much more free to go and have a few beers with you and everything and things like that. Different.
When you're doing that, Mark, what is your responsibility on that trip to Poland, for example? You're going away for the first time. What are you told to do?
Literally on that one. I mean, it's some of the stuff that we still do now. I mean, one of the things we do on camp when the teams arrive is we take their passports off them, because they've got to travel with their passports. So unless you got it in your hand, you don't trust them to not hand it over, because if it's in my car, day of the flight. I haven't got it really. We had one player turn up at the airport in London once with his wife's passport, and sort of tried to and still insisted to try and get on the plane. So and that was the same then. Just took the passports in, just do the game, take the notes of the game, relay it back to a sports desk back in Cardiff. It was very much, very still quite old-fashioned. I don't think what I was doing in '89 was any different to what my counterparts in the '60s were doing.
Sure.
To be honest. But then within 10 years, and definitely within 15, 20 years, it's a revolution.
Yeah.
It's way different now. It's still enjoyable, but it's such a different ball game now with clubs and sports science and I mean, when I did my first national team games with Wales, it was Terry Orth as manager, top man, Peter Shreves as assistant, an old fella called Ron Stitful, ex-Cardiff player, was the kit man, and a doctor called Graham Jones, who was Newport County's doctor, who literally would, when he was on duty for Wales, he would just lock up his GP office and just come and work for us. So if it's basically in Newport, in these next 10 days, I'm going to watch you play for Wales, so don't die, okay? That's how it was. So there was like 5 of us, and I just found it amazing.
Yeah,
you know.
Must have been
and now we've got 5 masseurs now.
Mark, you must have been all over the world. You know, you must have been some real highlights that you, as we touched on earlier, you wouldn't have went to otherwise.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way in the world that I would go to Moldova or Azerbaijan or Armenia and Georgia and those places. I love some of them. I love Georgia. It's an amazing place. Just had some great time in Azerbaijan, you know. But it's like football fans, like the Tartan Army, you know. Our fans are exactly very, very similar, almost identical to the Scottish fans. Since they want to go to these places, you know. Oh, what we got, Mark? Belgium. Go back and tell them we don't want to play them again. Yeah. You know, I mean, playing Republic of Ireland the last few years has been torture for our fans.
Yeah, you want a trip somewhere exotic, don't you? And by exotic, I mean Georgia or Moldova.
Well, actually, in October we're playing in Estonia,
sure.
And our fans are like champing at the bit to get to Estonia.
Yeah,
you know, we've got this decision through from FIFA now that they won't take away fans for September, which is frankly absurd. When you had fans travelling for the Euros in June and July, and then a couple of months later, you can't do it anymore. There was 12,000 Danish fans in Amsterdam when we got knocked out of the Euros.
And Mark, you know, I heard stories online that the Danish fans could travel, but the Welsh fans were getting knocked back at the border, and they were.
Yeah, no, we couldn't travel. I mean, that is part of a legacy of Brexit, mind.
Yeah.
You know, the freedom of movement didn't exist anymore, so we weren't able to travel. We had about 200 Welsh fans in the ground, but they had 12,000. So I think a lot of our fans are saying now, look, we want to go to Finland in September, but you're saying we can't. The Finland will let us in because of double vaccinations. But you say we can't. But meanwhile, 2 months ago, though, it was okay for 12,000 Danes to cross the border. And our fans, I think, are just really excited about October because we've got a double header. We've got Prague and Tallinn. It's probably like two of the best party cities in Europe.
That's amazing, eh?
And that's what they want to go to. Yeah, 100%. Our fans want to go to Tallinn. They want to go to Yerevan. They want to go to Baku. You know, the weirder the better. And I think the Scottish fans are exactly the same.
Absolutely. And so you as you say, you know, you touched on this job early 80s, early 90s. What a wait until you actually got to a major tournament. It must have been incredible. 2016 was that the first one?
It was the first one in 2016 I went to.
2006.
It was a bit of a wait. And we've got a couple of close shaves, of course. I mean, we had the Romania game in '93, which ended in tragedy. And then, which was, I've got to say, a heartbreaking event on so many levels. And then when we lost to Russia in the playoffs, but we didn't play that night. And it's one of those ones you actually went, oh, okay, fair enough. But it did feel as if we were never going to make it. It did feel as if, this is never going to happen.
Again, that's very similar to Scotland, is it? You know, it's the longer the heartache drags on, it makes it more special when you do actually get there.
Yeah, and I've got to say, France was the perfect storm for us. Fabulous event, fabulous place. And our fans were able to travel.
Yeah.
In their tens of thousands, you know, and that's what made the last Euros. Don't get me wrong, it's great to be there. It's great to be on the big stage and to enjoy it. But it was not even close to being how good France was.
You must have built up some relationships over the time. You know, you says that your first trip, you've got Chris Coleman in the under-21s, and then, you know, 20 years later, you're travelling with him as the manager. You know, it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, obviously we had Gary Speed before him, God bless his soul. You know, then Ryan Giggs comes in and he's out again. And Robert Page is our manager now, and they all played in that era.
Yeah.
So I've known them, man and boy, you know. And it does help. It does help, you know, because, you know, it's a bit of... I hope that myself and my colleagues provide a bit of stability, a bit of continuity as well. So nothing changes, you know, things change all the time, but the core staff are still there going through. Yeah, I mean, I've seen them all come and go, you know.
How close do you get to them? Because I'd imagine you've got some players who have got massive egos, you know. And I don't want to put names out there, but you say people like Ryan Giggs, who for me has played at the highest level. He's won everything in the game, you know. You've got Gareth Bale, who's out at Real Madrid, but then you've got players as well who play in the English leagues, maybe even the Welsh leagues to a certain extent, you know. And I feel like Wales, there's a real range of players at different levels, but when they get into that red kit, they all seem to be as one, and they all seem to be very down to earth.
Yeah, I think we've had it for quite a while now, and it used to be with Terry Arthur, and we've got it back now. That club mentality where they all come together and enjoy being together. Yeah. So, I mean, I know this is a bit sad for your podcast, but I mean, there are no prima donnas in the camp.
I would rather hear that, Mark. I would much rather hear that.
And that's the truth of it. I mean, they all come in, but it's interesting. The one player that they always mentioned in the Euro 2016 was a player who was playing in Scotland at the time. Owen Vaughan Williams.
Yeah.
And I think he's playing for Hamilton now, was he? No, Dunfermline. He's at Dunfermline now.
Dunfermline, he's at.
Now, he was our third choice goalkeeper. You know what third choice goalkeepers, they're never going to play, are they? But he plays a great guitar.
Oh, amazing.
And when we beat Israel away, he was the one with the guitar, sitting next to Gareth Bale. Owen's on the guitar, playing the tunes, and Gareth Bale singing some Murdering Some Oasis song, you know. That's what they always mentioned. They mentioned when we spoke about the team, we spoke about Owen Vaughan Williams because everything was important. Some of the things we do, sort of money-wise and everything, Gareth Bale may not, but players like Owen Vaughan Williams are in the professional game at the lower end of it, still professionals, still turning up for Wales, still coming away for 10 days on a trip where, again, let's be honest, he's not going to play, and they're the important ones.
Yeah.
Now, again, Owen in the Euros was there for, we were there for 4 or 5 weeks, weren't we? And he was magnificent, you know. So I think it's always good to look at those players because the big guns will look after themselves, but it's those players. I mean, in the Euros, it was Owen Vaughan Williams, David Vaughan, David Cottrell, those players who were fantastic off the field.
Yeah.
You know, they were off the field, they were really good fun.
And that's what holds everyone together. That's what brings that club mentality that you touched on there. You know, it's if you don't have those players there, they might not make the difference on the park, but they're the ones that are really bringing people together and making it a memorable trip away from the football.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, when we qualified in Bosnia in Zenica, we lost, but the Cypriots did us a favour. You know, again, it was the Owen Vaughan Williams of this world with the guitars, you know, it's all them. It's our kit man out with his guitar. It's that sort of thing. And that's not unique to Wales. That's all football teams. Yeah. Whether you're playing in, you know, the Highland League or you're playing in, you know, playing for England now.
Totally.
You know, it's those are small things that bring it together. If you haven't got it, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Is that something as part of your job you have to do, is book a guitar onto one of these flights, Mark?
No, it's a kit man's job, that is. Like, the kit man dies, been doing it for 20 odd years. And anybody in football will tell you the most important man in any club is the kit man.
Absolutely.
Because they think they run the place, and they probably do actually. And they do everything. So, you know, and they have this habit of producing things. I don't know. I've got a guitar, Di. I can get one for you now. Thinking, you're in Bosnia, and then he'd walk in with a guitar in his hand. That's kit men everywhere. I don't know who Mother Wells kit man is, but I can guarantee he knows where everything is.
Yeah, Alan McDonald, his name is, and he's been there for years as well. He's got a shrine, you know. He's got a little cave in Fir Park, and I think he's got a shirt of every club in the land. You know, it's the same. These people have relationships with football players that no one else does. Anytime that a player moves on, you know, you see them sending shirts back. And if you go into Alan's little cave at Fir Park, some of the jerseys he's got there are top players from all over the world.
Because I actually try to have a bit of distance between the players because in a way I'm a bit of a management role. Sure. But the kit men and the masseurs in particular, in any national team camp, the place where everything goes on is in the massage room, the medical room. You walk in there. You have to be prepared for some banter because, you know, the players are getting massaged and it's just flying everywhere. And, you know, it's so the masseurs, the kit men, these are the boys who the players will confide in.
Sure.
That's 100%. I mean, that's one of them. They will confide in those people. They won't talk to me, but keep me on that. I think that's true in any game.
It's very, very true, and I think it's amazing because really they hold so much power that no one else really knows. And when managers come and go, they remain constant. You know, they're probably the ones that are there the longest out of everyone.
Yeah, and that's something that's difficult for some of the Merthyrs game, because you become confident with somebody, and but you also don't want to be the one that passes the news on to the manager. Sometimes you might want to. And sometimes it can be a really fine balancing act of being friendly with the players and everything, but at the same time, you're employed by the club or the National Association. But so I'm in sort of one of my roles is actually appointing the staff, excluding the coaches because they pick themselves.
Sure.
So again, I try to keep a bit of distance if I can.
And one thing I want to touch on, Mark, that we can't speak about Welsh football or rugby, any Welsh sport for that matter, and not mention the national anthem. And I mean, you've waited all that time, and you touched on it being very special, the tournament in France. But I mean, to be standing there and the Welsh anthems getting belted out, was it Bordeaux? Was it the first game? Or?
Oh yeah, that's that. I think there was lots of amazing things in that amazing summer of 2016. But if you were to push a Welsh fan to say what was it, it was the anthem in Bordeaux, because it was like, just. And Chris Coleman was quite funny. Chris Coleman, he'll tell you a story about it, because before the game, he tells me after the game. I don't know these things, but what he wanted about was before the game, last minute. All right, boys, what we got to do now? We got to be calm first 15 minutes because they're going to come at us. This boy Hamzik, he's hell of a player. Want to get behind you and everything. Okay, no problem. That's the plan. 15 minutes, hold the ball, make sure Hamzik doesn't run. Great. And Chris Coleman reckons the anthem was so good, the player just lost it.
No way.
And there's a very famous clearance in the Euros in that game for us. Ben Davies of Spurs. Hamzik comes through, does exactly what we knew he was going to do, puts it on the keeper, and Ben Davies hooks it off the line. Now, if that goes in, it could have been a way different tournament for us. But he blames the anthem, Chris Coleman.
Honestly,
he blamed the anthem because he was so good. We were all like, "Oh my god!" It was so emotional. 30,000 Welsh people there just singing this anthem, and I think a lot of people would have said at that point, if the Euros had finished then, that would have been fine. That would have been fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I say, Wales, that's enough for you. That's fine. We'll head home now. That's okay. Because the Euros was basically about the anthem, let's go one goal, and then it went from there.
It's really one of those ones that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. I would remember talking, even at this one there, the recent tournament, there was no fans, but it's still when the players sing it, they belt it out, and one of the things for me, watching Scotland, I get really pissed off with, Mark, is when players don't sing the national anthem. And actually at the tournament there, I don't know if Steve Clarke had hammered it into them that you have to do it, but it was the first time I remember seeing all Scotland players singing the anthem. But the Welsh players, it's almost as important as the game itself, isn't it?
It's been going for a long time, but Gary Speed really sort of brought it home to us. And what Gary Speed brought into the camp was the New Zealand haka.
Right, okay.
Because if you look at the YouTube from the 50s, the New Zealand haka, it's a bit pathetic. But they've brought it in now as part of their values and their culture.
Sure.
And because anybody, especially young football players, are very self-conscious. And Gary brought in the fact that this was part of what you had to do to play for Wales. This is the anthem, and the minimum you can do is sing the anthem. So, some players still don't sing it, but the majority will sing it because of that. And it's all to do with just ignoring the sort of that self-consciousness and just sing the anthem. A bit like the New Zealanders who come in, they're not all Maoris, but they buy into the fact this is important. We will do this before the match. And one other thing that's mentioned with the anthem as well is that we had lots of problems with the anthem syncing up into the different parts of the ground with the anthem on being played. So if you come to a Wales game now, what you'll find is we play the first 3 bars and then there is no music. So it's just the crowd, and it works amazingly well. because the crowd are together then, and there's no like echoing and everything, because people take the anthem very seriously in Wales. So yeah, so we don't actually play the music, the anthem. We don't do anything. We just set it up, and the crowd takes it away, which is again pretty
it's
special.
powerful, isn't it? It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Mark, as part of your role, do you ever have to book the acts that sing the anthem at all?
I have been involved with that, bits and pieces. In the end, to be honest, we used to book the acts to sing the anthem and do some stuff when we were back in the days when we were struggling for crowds and stuff, and putting events on. So we did about that. I'm at the Millennium Stadium, because I refuse to call it the Principality Stadium, but the Millennium Stadium. Of course, back in the day when we were getting massive crowds there, with Mark Hughes and everything, we were putting some great acts on. So we had the Manic Street Preachers on there, and Goldie Looking Chain, of course.
Guns don't kill people.
Well, I mean, they famously sang "Your Mother's Got a Penis."
That's right. Yeah.
And the one they sang was is your girlfriend's a nutter or something?
No, they sang "Your Mother's Got a Penis" as well. I remember that one.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, though, and this is me name dropping now. So it was a big thing. So Beckham was playing for England, and the press was like, "Oh my God, this is an insult," because they're actually singing, because he mentioned when he started the song, it was like, "David Beckham, this one's for you." And then they sang the song, and everyone laughed and got on with the game, and we lost. And afterwards, then it was a questions asked in the press conference to our manager, Mark Hughes. Do you think this was disrespectful? And he's like, "I don't know what you're on about. I'm in the dressing room."
I've not got a clue.
So as Beckham is leaving, by the way, and I've only met him twice, and I've met him for a very brief time. Nice bloke. Sorry to disappoint you in Scotland. Nice bloke. And one of the boys said to him, "What do you think about that then?" So I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Brilliant. I'm gonna download that when I get home. And he was genuine about it. But we ended up, the press was so on top of it, we ended up having to apologise to him, the FAW, one of those, and he didn't give a shit.
No,
he was
why would you?
Laughing his head off.
Aye, that's crazy.
Yes, so we used to have some good bands back in the day there. We do bits and pieces now, but in those days, the Manic Street Preachers, Feeder,
Feeder
Looking Chain.
Are Feeder Welsh? Are Feeder Welsh?
Yeah, they're from Newport.
Oh, I never knew that. That's terrible.
No, catch up, mate. Come on,
Apologies. I was thinking big names like your Charlotte Church and your Tom Jones, and you came out with Goldie Looking Chain. But I'll let you off with that one.
It's funny in Wales. There's certain singers who are classed as rugby people.
Oh, right.
And there's certain bands who are football people, and whether you're going to get into politics later on, I don't know. But like the football is more or less classed as a sort of a nationalist political animal. Not everybody, of course. That's not true. Whereas the rugby is classed as a bit more, not unionist, a bit more traditional, more Welsh. The rugby still have the choir and the goat on the pitch, and and everything. And it's still, hey, it's a great day out. Rugby, I'm not knocking it. It's a fantastic day out. But the football has become something else. So we have to be very careful of what we put up front, because the crowd thinks, "Oh no, that's a rugby person."
Yeah,
they'll get told.
That's interesting. I've always thought of Wales as a rugby country, which is very ignorant to me, considering your football team are significantly better than ours. But that's interesting. I never realised there was such a divide there, or a slight divide. I have to say.
Well, it's more of a sort of a viewpoint, political divide. Really. I don't get me wrong. Rugby is massively important to Wales.
Yeah.
The Six Nations as a day out, as a social event, is huge, especially in the South Wales Valleys area. When the rugby's on, everybody goes out and watch it. Nobody has a clue what's going on. But they enjoy it, and it is a massive cultural thing. The rugby is a big day out, a lot of drinking, out seeing friends is a fantastic thing. But participation sport is football.
Sure.
Every village in Wales, same as in Scotland, has a football team. And it's much more of a widespread as well. Rugby, the professional game, is all in the south. Football, the big professional clubs are in the south, but in the north we've got the oldest team, Wrexham, and all of our national domestic champions have all come from the north, bar a few years for Barry Town in the south. I don't say their name very often either, because they were Merthyr's rivals back in the day. Barry. So rugby is important, but it can be perceived in different ways. Very traditional rugby. very much as it's always been, whereas football is a bit more.
What's that?
Well, I like to say, I think it's more dynamic.
Sure. You touched on politics there, Mark, and I find Welsh politics really interesting at the moment, or in general more than just at the moment, because I don't understand it as much as I should. You know, I think Scottish independence is, you know, sitting probably just now almost at 50-50, and I look at Wales and take the Brexit vote, for example. It seemed to be the towns that would suffer most from it, or the cities that would suffer most from it in Wales that voted for it. And it just seems like there's very much a disillusion there with the European Union, but maybe not so much with Britain.
It was a massive on goal for Wales. I mean, it's just untrue, really, how bad it was. Again, we were in the Euros when it happened, you know, and I remember waking up the morning of the referendum result, and I'd gone to bed, and he was like, "Oh, we're going to stay in," and then of course it changed overnight. And we're going into the TV room to look at the big screen and watch the news. And Ben Davies was sitting there, and he was absolutely gobsmacked, because he comes from Neath, which is one like Merthyr, like Neath, like those sort of old industrial town, that belt across the top of the valleys, who voted out. And, you know, it's been proved now that we would get £373 million for our communities from the EU every year.
Yeah.
And now the Johnson's clowns are going to give us £10 million instead. You know, it's crazy. But you are right. There's something in that, though, is that people are getting frustrated, are getting annoyed with a lot of things coming from Westminster. We're nowhere near in Wales, anywhere near the 50-50 of Scotland. We're about 30% at the moment.
Yeah.
And how robust that 30% is, I don't know. But it's been really refreshing over the last 5, 6, 7 years to see finally the Welsh sort of political, Welsh politics really actually becoming more dramatic, I suppose, because it's been quite stable and staid before. But, you know, and again, the pandemic has helped that, you know, because I think the popularity, Labour won the Senate election year more or less based on the popularity of our First Minister. Because,
totally.
Obviously, I mean, I've stood against Labour for Plaid Cymru, and I know how hard it is to dislodge them in the valleys. But people genuinely have appreciated how Mark Drakeford has performed.
Yep.
You know, don't get me wrong, man. I think anybody could perform better than Boris Johnson. I mean, it's just,
do you know,
literally.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I think the Scottish people are probably, on the whole, don't get me wrong, unionists absolutely hate Nicola Sturgeon, but I think that the majority of the Scottish people would probably think that she's done quite a good job throughout the pandemic. But again, look what you're up against. You know, it's it's not hard to look better than Johnson.
And then what's happening in Wales of late is they started having there's some sort of the marches, but like obviously you've had loads in Scotland.
Yeah. And
this has happened a lot of time over the years, and I've been to independence marches, and I was there on my own with a dog, you know, because and we actually had one in Merthyr, and we had 5,000 people turn up. Now that you can say, oh, that's not a lot of people, but it was a major event, you know, and that's this Yes Cymru sort of organisation now, which is the sort of the non-political one.
Yeah.
It has its issues like any organisation. But that really has sort of made the national question much more accessible, because it's not just Plaid Cymru driving it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because Plaid Cymru really has a problem breaking through in the South Wales Valleys area. I've tried myself, and it is stunningly hard work.
Why do you think that is, Mark? What do you put it down to?
A lot of it is just. A lot. I mean, again, Motherwell, steel works, you know, industrial town, Merthyr, steel works, coal mining. You know, it's that old sort of the old Labour
heartlands,
you know,
isn't it? Yeah,
heartlands, and it is that old Labour. And don't get me wrong, you know, from 1945 up into the 60s, you know, a lot of people around here were doing really well for Labour, and a lot of people dislike the Tories.
Yeah,
and the Labour Party are very well organised here. They're very well organised, and they are the establishment. So it's very difficult to get people to change things. And then when you're actually asking to change things for something much more dramatic, as in independence, it's very difficult to get that over. But I mean, what we have noticed though is that the younger generation now is much more open to listen, just to listen. And I'm not sure if it's the same in Scotland, but with us now, I mean, I'm 54, so the generation above me, I mean, they will literally vote Labour until the end.
Yeah, put a red rosette and a dog, and they'll vote for it.
Yeah, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, the donkey with the red rosette.
Yeah.
No, and they are good, and of course they are good Labour politicians everywhere. But I think people are starting to challenge that and say, look, can we do something better? And the pandemic and Boris Johnson together has made people genuinely say, we can do better than this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Labour politicians in Wales now who are actually saying that as well, which is very interesting. Who are saying, look, I've been a Labour politician for 30 years and I haven't got anywhere near power to make a real difference for my constituents. So I'm beginning to agree with you.
Yeah.
Why don't I just...
I feel that, Mark, the more that... It's the same with Scotland. The whole of Scotland could return Labour MPs, the whole of Wales could return Labour MPs, and you can still end up with a Tory government. And it's now it's coming to the point where what you do is useless. So it's... I can understand why the younger generation primarily are thinking, let's go out on our own. If you look at Scottish independence, you says, we're only at 30% in Wales just now, but before the 2014 referendum, it was sitting around about 26%, 24%, and it got up to 45, and now we're sitting at, the last polls were showing that over 70% of young people in Scotland want independence. And I can see Wales going the same way, because there is no alternative, is there?
No, there's not. I mean, look, Boris Johnson is a clown, in my opinion. I don't think anybody's going to argue with me on that. But he will probably win the next election.
Oh, he will, without a doubt.
Because his constituency he plays to will vote him back in. Yeah. And eventually, Scotland and Wales are going to realise, we are tied to this monolithic government, which doesn't make any sense. But the interesting thing about football and the politics in Wales is, and none of it's the same in Scotland, is that we have an independence march before every game, Wales game. There's a Welsh language club in Womambi Street in Cardiff called Clwb Ifor Bach.
Right, okay.
And it started out quite small. And the Yes Cymru and the Welsh Football Fans for Independence group, they walk from that. It's about a 2 mile, no, maybe more, a 2 or 3 mile walk. And they walk up there with banners and everything and flares going off and everything. We're getting to the stage now where we're going to have to sort of intervene to close roads for them because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay.
But this walk, because it's fun, it's colourful. Hey, I can't condone pyro. My official line there for you. But that's growing. And also, I believe, and I've got no stats for this, but I do believe this, that the Welsh football fans who travel everywhere, who go to Armenia, Estonia, Georgia, and come back and go, hold on a minute, I've just been to Georgia, and they're independent.
Yeah. You're too small to go out on your own, are you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Iceland, Estonia, what you name them, And I think a lot of our football fans are that way inclined now because they travel so much. The horizons are wider. The rugby fan, obviously goes to Scotland, Ireland, Italy, France. One day they'll let Georgia in, and the Welsh rugby fans will have a great time at Tbilisi. It's a fabulous city. Yeah. The Welsh football fans go to these countries all the time. Now, again, I'm not speaking for all of them, but genuinely, these fans are coming home and saying, that was amazing. I love Tallinn. That was a great place. What a clever little country they are. For me, Estonia is where Wales should be. They're a massive neighbour to the east. So have we.
Yep.
They got, obviously, a lot of pressure from the Russians in populations and everything. And Estonia is one of the leaders in the world on e-commerce. Yeah. If you're talking about online stuff, they are the people who will daily knock off Russian cyber attacks because they are so clever and they're so bespoke in what they're doing. Wales could be the same. Wales could be the same as that. And I always think Estonia is, and I think that's one of the things I'm really hopeful our fans go to Estonia. I ramble a bit there, but I genuinely think fans travelling, people travel, widens your horizons. Scottish football fans travelling, I'm sure they will be the same. They'll be going away and going, hold on a minute. they're doing all right there. They're doing okay. That was a great place.
Yeah.
Why can't we do it?
Totally agree. I think where you've got a bit of a difference with Scottish football fans is I feel that the Scottish FA, maybe the Welsh FA are the same, Mark, but I feel that a lot of Scottish fans try to distance the political independence debate from football, and that's because a lot of football fans in Scotland support Rangers, and there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the vast majority of Rangers fans are pro-union. And Scotland want to, and they've worked very hard on this over the years to include everyone from the country in supporting the national team. And there's no doubt you go to Scotland games. I go to nearly every Scotland home game, and you see banners, Scotland fans for independence. You see, yes, Scotland flags at the games. And I feel that totally distances itself from Rangers fans who make up a big proportion of the Scotland support. And you also get, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly to be fair, there's been instances where Scotland fans will boo Rangers players when they come onto the pitch. And it creates that divide there. It's a very strange dynamic in Scottish politics that, if you support Rangers, you should be a unionist, and if you don't, then it's difficult. I don't agree with that at all.
Of course, we don't get that. I mean, we over the years we have had sort of instances of when we play a game in Swansea, Cardiff players be booed, but we're a long way past that now.
Good.
I think that's the way it's going to be. We don't really get that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the atmosphere in the stadiums and everything is. I don't think we have pro-independence singing or anything. It's just the general mood of people. When I think when you get back, you go on social media, you see fans who've been away, and again, I got no stats, but you see their political leanings are more towards we can do it better, and it's more that than I want independence. It's like we can do it better, Whether independence means we go. I know we go into what ifs. Then, do we need an army? But I think they're just basically saying we can do better than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where they are, and that's where I am really. And I've been a member of Plaid Cymru for about 30 years now. Stood for Parliament. 2,246 votes, by the way, right?
Brilliant. That's impressive.
Well, sadly, the Labour Party had about 18,000 votes, but that's not the point. Is it taking part accounts?
Listen, give it a few years or another 10 years, Mark, and you might be doubling that at least.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting in going round though in the last election because some of the right wing media, then people read this stuff and they believe it. It's frightening on the doorstep sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow. Sometimes you have to experience it to actually really believe it because it's really scary stuff. People just
Did you get anyone going for yourself or making up stories about yourself or trying to dent your?
No, we didn't have that. I mean, to be honest with you, at the time we had this a bit confused policy of trying to not leave the EU. So we had a few people who wanted to go about Brexit and everything, but no, not really. It was more people having to go to the Labour Party on the doorstep, and Jeremy Corbyn wanted us to join ISIS. That was one. I didn't know there was a membership, mate. Didn't know there was a membership. He wants to get rid of the army, and these are people on doorsteps. Derek were very well dressed, articulate, actually preaching back to me this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah,
the power of the media to just keep pushing this stuff out, and that I think, that's why social media is so important in a way. And don't get me wrong, it is a echo chamber.
Yeah,
but to push messages out is really important.
Mark, you've hit the nail on the head. For me, there's so many negatives to social media. You always hear the bad stories from it, but especially the referendum campaign in 2014, it allows you to give your own narrative. You're not dominated by a media that's owned by a select few billionaires that own nearly every newspaper in the land. It allows you to tell your own story. And I think for the Welsh people going forward, that will play a huge part in their future. No longer are you going to listen to the Sun or the Daily Mail or whatever papers you've got in Wales there pushing what they want to hear, it's...
Yeah, in Wales, there's a couple of things that's happened in Wales recently. They've got a thing called Cymru Nation, or Nation Cymru, which is like an online newspaper, and that pushes out articles every day. They're not all about independence, don't get me wrong, they are just genuine articles about Welsh life, and I've been amazed the numbers involved there.
That's
So
good.
people pick up their news differently. And a lot of the stuff they do as well is about sport and football, which has been quite interesting. So it's much more of a in-depth view of the domestic game in Wales, which has been ignored for a long time, and I think is getting much better.
Good.
So that's happening a lot with us. And in Wales as well, obviously the fan ownership thing, because Merthyr, our club, is fan owned. That's been very big. I think Motherwell is the same, isn't it?
Yeah, we're the first fan owned top flight club, certainly in Scotland, and I think almost the UK. But yeah, we've got around about 3,000 members just now, and everyone pays in a subscription each month. And you know, it's been a real success. You'll know more than MD, Mark, and I think that's really the future for clubs of our size. It means that it's protected by the people that care the most about the football club. And what's the Welsh club just now that's owned by the guys from LA, the actors? Wrexham. I just think, why have they agreed that? You know, I just don't get it. For me, I would not want to be owned by a Hollywood actor by any means. I don't care how much money they plough into it. It's like football clubs are not someone's play toy. You know, this is people's livelihood. It's their community. It's the thing that they're most proud of. Like, get it off the Hollywood screens.
I mean, and the governance. I mean, I'm currently the vice chairman of the football club in Merthyr because I've been elected onto the board. Much to my, I can't believe I did this. So much hard work.
Yeah.
The fan ownership thing is really important, I think, because I think, and especially in Scottish clubs like Motherwell and that, you know, you're right, because it's about just maintaining the club for the community, and you know, the risk of going out with we've had it both ways actually in Merthyr. We had an absentee landlord who ran us into the ground, and we went bankrupt in 2010, and we started again with the fans trust, and then about 4 years into that, then we took our eye off the ball, and we almost. We had to pay a tax bill of about 30 grand. Not a lot of money in the great scheme of things, but for us it was. Yeah. We'd have raised money in a week, and we did. We raised the money in a week, and we were sort of that close to closing again, you know. And that was an interesting wake-up call because ultimately it's the fans. So everyone on the sidelines was moaning about it, including me. No, well, it's up to you. You have to join in now because it's not like the big clubs like Man United and that where you feel helpless. It's the other way around with Motherwell and Merthyr then. You've got to step up.
Exactly.
Don't sit in the pub and moan about it. Step up to the plate and get on with it. Do you want to put a jumble sail on? Do you want to put a car boot sail on? Great. You go and do it, and I'll open the gates for you.
Yeah.
And that's been in Merthyr now for the last 5 years, and I think we've come on leaps and bounds because, you know, it is like, no, you mention it, you do it.
Yeah. And that's it. It also gives people that personal responsibility that they feel quite proud of. You know, they're involved with the football club. They can speak to people like yourself, who is the vice chairman. They've probably got a relationship with the players where, you know, they've got access to them, especially for kids. You know, you mentioned Man United, for example. They're never going to meet their heroes. Whereas at a smaller football club like Merthyr or Motherwell, who's fan owned, they'll probably meet the players before the match or after the match if they just stand out front entrance. You know,
and I just think, I mean, one of the things that Merthyr has got, and which is really unique, is the fact we can, unlike Scotland, at Merthyr, because we are that low on the thing, you can drink on the terraces. So we got a nice big ground, Merthyr. If you ever come in Merthyr, come have to see us. We've got the old Football League ground. It's four-sided. It's one of the better non-league grounds probably in England and Wales, genuinely.
Sure.
But you can take your pint out in a plastic glass, of course, and have a drink inside the pitch. Now, it's a very interesting story. So Merthyr play in England. So there's a lot of discussion about whether we should join the Welsh system.
Sure.
So one of the people, my colleagues actually in the association, went up and met the fans and said, look, so here's some of the benefits to join the Welsh system. And it was really, I wasn't there. I sort of kept away. And there was a really genuinely good, you know, yeah, you have money for the lights, you can have money for this, and, you know, European football. Yeah. And then just at the end of the meeting, when everyone was sort of getting on, somebody said, well, look, in the Welsh Premier League, then can you have a pint next to the pitch? Oh no, you can't do that.
I'm out.
Because, oh, that was it. No, you're right. That was it. I was the end of the conversation. What? If we join your league, I can't drink a pint and watch a game. No. Oh, that's it then. That was it. That is what the culture of football is, really.
That's incredible.
You know, I mean, we played our first home game on Saturday, and one of the cafes on the other side of the ground was closed because we couldn't get a couple of volunteers. Because we sell in Merthyr, I think, called cob and chips.
What's
so
that?
There's a cob of bread,
right, okay.
cut in half, take a dough out, and you put chips in it.
Brilliant.
It is amazing. It's about 30,000 calories, but it's amazing. Saturday, it was almost a riot.
Because it wasn't home.
Right. Yeah, the football was great as well, but where's the cod and chips? That is in our board discussion this week.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No cod and chips, no pints. We're not there. We're not going. Forget.
No, not going there. No. But that's what the culture is, and I think the same is that when you go to Motherwell, if you go to Queen's Park, those are things that people enjoy doing because it's a more relaxed atmosphere.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things. Do I want Merthyr to win 3 promotions and go to the Football League? I'm sure it'll be fun, but I don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
I want to know on bubble trips and not being able to drink on the head of the pitch.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
And I think it's for people that support bigger clubs that are used to success, it's hard to tell them that, isn't it? It's hard to say the one thing for me that I want out of my football club is to make sure that they've got a sustained future. I don't care if they win a trophies. I'd love them to win the Scottish Cup. But if they never win it in my lifetime, it's not the worst thing in the world,
To be honest with you, the big thing for us every year is, and we're just about to find out what we're going to play, is the FA Cup, because we join in the second qualifying round, and we are shocking in it. We may as well keep the money and invest in a horse. It would make us more money by shocking it. But it's that dream.
Yeah.
It's that dream. Because we know we're too far. It's the dream of the FA Cup. It's the dream of that. And that's what keeps people going. And apart from that, I've got no other ambitions. My ambition is to keep watching the game with my son, and my dad watches it as well.
Yeah.
Have a few pints. And that's my ambition.
That's it.
I'm not that bothered. And when I talk to people about that in the Welsh system, probably, Merthyr, a big club in Wales, you should be in this league and you can go to Europe. I don't want to go to Europe. And they
want
think
a
I'm
pint
mad.
outside of the pitch.
I just want to pint inside the pitch, and I don't mind going to. I went to Western Supermare last night to watch us. We lost 3-1. We weren't very good. Sure. I had a great time. Went over the border.
It's family, isn't it? As you say, it's your kids, it's your dad. That's what football is for many. Yeah,
and that's where I am with it, And I think working for the Welsh FA as well, I see the top of the game, and I see the grassroots game, and hopefully it'll still stay the same game. I'm VAR is changing things slightly. I don't understand about thick lines on pitches, and the English game is doing handball different to the German game. I thought football was supposed to be one set of laws. But ultimately it's still the same. So that's still one of the biggest things I think for me. That's like Formula 1 is not a sport.
I'd go with you in that.
Because Formula 1, I can't go down to my local Formula 1 club tomorrow and jump in a Ferrari.
No, it's totally inaccessible, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but football is accessible, and that's why football is such an amazing sport, because it is accessible. You can literally just get a football and play. Formula 1 club. I'm sure there's one somewhere in Britain, but it's not in Merthyr.
Mark, if it wasn't for football, I wouldn't have got to speak to you tonight, and I've really enjoyed it. I really appreciate your time.
No problem at all.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks to everyone who has listened to this episode of the DW podcast. If you've liked it, please subscribe and check out some previous episodes. And thanks again to Mark Evans for his time.